It's great that so many of you have been able to join us this afternoon from all the way across England. We've had a huge number of sign-ups for this webinar and a waiting list also for colleagues wanting to take the recording when it becomes available. I'm Nicola Hall, I'm the Director of Education at the Careers and Enterprise Company, and I'm delighted to be joined this afternoon by my colleague Leslie Thane. I just want to start with a little bit of housekeeping before we commence the main information. I can't see any of you at all. I can only see the slides on the webinar format. So apologies if I appear to miss anything that's happening in the background. The session is being recorded and the recording will be shared after the session. The chat function is switched off because the group is so large, but the question and answer function is on, and we'll be collating questions and answering via the frequently asked questions document, which we publish on our CEC website. We'll share a copy of those questions with the recording as well, so that you all receive the same information. There are a couple of my colleagues on the call this afternoon who will be potentially posting links to resources as required if questions are asked about them on the call this afternoon. Today is a really important session. Last week, we saw the publication of updated statutory guidance. Many of you may have started to read that, but of course, we know how busy you are as we approach the end of the summer term. You may also have seen commentary around work experience, NEET provision, destinations, employer engagement, and the wider reforms taking place across education. So today isn't just about reading the guidance to you, it's helping you to understand what's changed, why it's changed, how that fits into the wider policy landscape, and most importantly, what this means for your own institution. Our aim is that you leave today's session with confidence, not only about the guidance itself, but about where careers education is heading over the next few years. So here's our roadmap for the session today. We're going to start by stepping back. So whenever guidance changes, it's tempting to jump straight to the detail, but policy never appears in isolation. So we're going to take a look at the national picture, because once you understand that national picture, then the guidance starts to make sense. We'll then look at the key updates before we turn to 3 practical priorities. They are continuous improvement of careers guidance and careers education, the NEET prevention agenda and the importance of transitions and sustained destinations, and then specifically we'll talk about reforming work experience. And throughout the call this afternoon, we'll highlight support available and practical next steps for you. One of the strongest messages that I'd like you to take away today is that these reforms are not happening separately. Sometimes education policy can feel like lots of different announcements arriving from all kinds of different directions. But actually this year, we're seeing something rather different. The Further Education and Skills White Paper, the Curriculum and Assessment Review, the revised Ofsted Framework, and the Schools White Paper, of course, are 4 separate publications, but they show one connected direction. They are all reinforcing each other and all together become a connected narrative. Together, they are moving careers education much closer to the centre of school and college improvement. Not because careers is to be seen as an extra, but because careers helps to deliver almost everything the government now presently wants to achieve. Better curriculum, better transitions, better productivity, and better destinations outcomes. And now, of course, we also have the Milburn Diagnosis report to add to that group of policy levers shown here. Let's spend a few moments just bringing these things together. The Further Education and Skills White Paper places employers and skills at the very heart of education. On personal development. Careers is no longer something inspectors are glancing at. They are more concerned not just with performance against the Gatsby benchmarks, but are actively looking at transitions, learner progression, and sustained destinations. Overall, that framework contributes to leadership, curriculum, and pupil outcomes. And finally, the Schools White Paper talks about broad, ambitious education that prepares young people for their next step. The Schools White Paper also links enrichment to careers education. 2 weeks ago, the Department for Education launched a new enrichment framework with a set of benchmarks, and you will see that referenced within the careers statutory guidance as well. So if we stand back from these 4 points and 4 levers, we can see that careers education has moved. It is now about sitting as part of school improvement. Careers education is one of the ways school improvement is delivered. Careers has moved from the margins to the mainstream of education. Indeed, if we had collectively wished for something 7 years ago, it would have been that careers wasn't bolted on. It would be, and where it is bolted on in some institutions, things must change, and quickly, to be able to respond to the developments afoot. If that's the policy direction, we need to think about what actually makes careers provision successful. We've learned a huge amount over the last decade through careers hubs, Compass Plus, internal leadership reviews, peer reviews, and thousands of schools contributing to data sets on an annual basis. Success almost always comes back to 4 things: senior leadership commitment, curriculum integration, employer and community partnerships, those being intentional and relational, not transactional, and better and more acutely used data and its analysis to target young people whose needs are not being sufficiently met. These aren't 4 independent ingredients. They reinforce each other. Leadership enables curriculum. Curriculum creates employer demand. Employer engagement generates evidence. And evidence improves leadership decisions. That's the cycle that careers education continually moves through. So we have some challenges at the moment. And why does careers guidance matter more than ever before? Because the challenges facing young people have become harder. The latest figures show 1 million young people aged 16 to 24 are now NEET. That's the highest level for many years. And behind every statistic is a young person whose transition didn't work as well as it could have done. The publication of the Milburn Review reinforces that challenge. This is not simply about careers guidance. It's about preventing young people drifting away from education and employment altogether. And that's why careers is increasingly being viewed through a transitions lens. A new and further report has also been published today. The White Working Class Educational Outcomes Report was published this morning, and transitions are highlighted as key pressure points where gaps widen and engagement declines for white working class young people. And there are multiple other examples of challenges for young people overall. When we're considering the narrative of the statutory guidance and its changes, it's really vital for us to think about the challenges that young people are facing, but also the positioning of their voice. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Leslie, who will walk you through the key statutory guidance updates and support for you.
Thank you, Nicola. So the statutory guidance for careers was updated on the 23rd of June. And when you read the updated guidance, I would urge you not to think of it as a series of technical updates, but to think of it as strategic positioning. There's a clear message from government that shows that careers contributes to skills, productivity and growth, as well as preventing young people becoming NEET. Careers is positioned as a driver for school and college improvement. Work experience becomes a priority. Inclusion and equity are at the heart of the guidance, and there is a clear shift to careers becoming a data-driven system. Almost everything in the guidance can be grouped into 3 priorities: continuous improvement, transitions and destinations, and reforming work experience. The first priority is continuous improvement. The Gatsby benchmark framework remains the foundation, but there is a stronger expectation around continuous improvement and careers being strategically embedded within an institution. There is a strong recommendation to use the Careers Impact System, which supports a quality assured, sustainable, and strategic approach to careers leadership. There remains a strong emphasis on ensuring that those leading, delivering, and supporting careers are appropriately trained. The second priority is transitions, progression, and destinations. There is a strong message within the guidance of the role that careers education can play in the prevention of NEET. Evidence shows that the highest quality careers provision is associated with better post-16 and post-18 destinations and reduces the likelihood of young people becoming not in education, employment, or training. And it has double the impact in schools serving the highest proportion of disadvantaged learners. There is also some additional guidance on delivering the government's ambition of 2 weeks' worth of work experience. And Nicola is going to talk about that in more detail in her section coming up. Careers has clearly been positioned as a contributor to key government priorities, breaking down barriers to opportunity, economic growth and productivity, Skills England priorities and growth sectors, and NEET prevention. The updated guidance reflects the revised inspection framework, and there is greater focus on careers as part of leadership and governance, careers supporting informed progression decisions, and increased focus on quality of provision and employer engagement. Other key areas that are new and referenced within the guidance include our On Track Plus tool, which provides early insight within Compass Plus to help schools and specialist settings recognise learners who may benefit from additional support and early intervention. The guidance references the new Education Records app, where students will be able to access the results after leaving school. It makes reference to the support available through the new Jobs and Career Service, which will be launched from October 2026. As Nicola has referred to already, the enrichment benchmarks and guidance were published 2 weeks ago, and they set out non-statutory guidance designed to help schools and colleges plan, evaluate, and strengthen their extracurricular and personal development offers. The guidance also makes reference to Your Child's Future, a new parent and carer questionnaire aimed to support an institution's approach to parental engagement. We are not expecting you to navigate these updates alone. We are here to support you. Our summary guides have been updated to reflect all of the changes to the statutory guidance and can be accessed via the QR code. We have a comprehensive offer of training and CPD for educators, including fully funded training for careers leaders, and for education leaders, governors, SENCOs, or the wider teaching workforce. Tailored content is available to help everyone effectively play their part in helping young people find their best next step. We have a range of digital tools, including Compass Plus, and within Compass Plus, we have features such as FSQ, our young person career readiness tool, and as I mentioned, On Track Plus to support the early identification of those young people who may require some additional interventions. So whilst expectations have increased, so too has our support. I will hand back to Nicola now, who's going to talk you through more detail on the updates to work experience.
So I'd like to spend a little more time on work experience, ultimately because this is one of the most significant developments that we've seen for many years. Certainly, actually, the most robust development that we've seen since the original introduction of the Gatsby benchmarks and then its updates a year ago. The government has moved from talking about work experience to then thinking about direction setting. Last May, they set the direction of travel for the work experience guarantee. And in this year's guidance update, they are setting a clear expectation. 2 weeks for every young person by the end of Key Stage 4. That is a significant ambition. And the expectation is that from September 2026, schools should be reforming their work experience programmes as laid out in the guidance. There are challenges and opportunities when we think about work experience. There are moments when policy changes become legislation changes, or policy changes because legislation changes. There are moments when policy changes because funding changes. And occasionally, like now, there are policy changes because society changes. This is most definitely one of these moments. Young people are telling us they don't feel prepared. Employers are telling us they need experience. Young people tell us they want more experience. Schools want flexibility. Parents want confidence. The answer isn't simply more careers information, it's more authentic experience. So the expectation, as I mentioned, is that by September 2026, every young person has the opportunity to access 2 weeks' worth of work experience, and schools should be reforming their programmes. Basically, this means moving from a direction of travel to an expectation of implementing reform. This doesn't mean, and nobody expects, that by September, all young people will be accessing 2 weeks' worth of experience. What it means is that progressively, you should be turning the dial and moving your programs towards being able to deliver this guarantee for all young people into the future. And there is an expectation that you approach this work progressively with good intent and high quality, as you would do for the Gatsby benchmarks. And let's remind ourselves of the importance of Gatsby benchmark 6 when we think about reforming work experience. The definitions of meaningful that sit within benchmark 6 sit front and centre of the ambition outlined within the statutory guidance. It's so very important that young people have the opportunity to plan for, learn from, and reflect on their experiences of work experience, making sure they are absolutely meaningful along the way. So you can see, and you've seen this detail before, this is detail that has now been set out with some minor wording changes in the implementation of the guarantee, but some more detail around expectations of implementation. We can see here that there is still 1 week's worth of experience activities expected in years 7 to 9, and 1 week's worth of experience placements in years 10 to 11. The 2 weeks worth of work experience does not include volunteering or part-time employment that a pupil undertakes ordinarily. It's really important that young people have the opportunity to prepare, reflect, progress, and learn from these experiences, not simply attend one singular work experience. The biggest mind shift isn't from 1 week to 2. It's from thinking about placements as singular units to thinking about learning. As we walk carefully through each comparison, let's look at the differences that we're saying a modern approach to work experience looks like. Traditionally, work experience has been one placement, typically taken in year 10. The modern thinking outlined in the guidance expects multiple experiences, so that young people have got the opportunity to experience multiple different workplaces across multiple sectors, giving them a genuine line of sight and understanding to the range of opportunities that are available for them now and into their futures. Traditional thinking assumes the same model for all young people. Modern thinking enables you to think about different models for different learners, thinking about how your programs are differentiated to meet the needs of your different cohorts of learners. In traditional thinking, we often see that attendance at work experience is variable and access to work experience is definitely inequitable. Modern thinking sees attendance boosted by thinking about planned learning outcomes and thinking about how young people progress through multiple experiences. starting small in Key Stage 3 and building with depth and application as learners move through their secondary school journey. Traditional thinking challenges employer availability. Employers find it increasingly hard to deliver block placements. But through modern thinking, employer flexibility and innovation is driving more employers to become involved. In a traditional model, we tend to think of a placement being completed. As we move forward, we need to think about a modern work experience programme developing skills and confidence for young people, giving them agency in their experiences so that they can talk to employers about them, not simply attend them. So instead of asking the question, did a young person complete a placement? Really, we should be asking ourselves, what changed because they experienced workplaces? What did they learn through their experiences of workplaces? And can they make better, more informed choices as a consequence of experiencing those workplaces? Many of you have seen this before, but I wanted to just remind you of the EqualX framework, which is also mentioned in the updated statutory guidance. There are 3 tiers to the EqualX model, of which your learners can access at any point throughout their learning journey. And these 3 tiers should help you have really targeted conversations with employers about the type of experiences that you want to enable your young people to be able to access. So when you're planning your programs of work experience and when you're reforming your programs of work experience, you should have a blend of these 3 tiers of activity for young people to be able to access across the course of their 5 years of secondary education. These 3 tiers and the EqualX framework are underpinned by structured learning outcomes. The structured learning outcomes are linked to this particular slide. Each learning outcome has a set of learning objectives that are sat beneath it. These are designed specifically to help you plan with intent, but also to help your learners know exactly what's expected of them from the perspective of the development of skills, workplace behaviours, and their opportunity to think about their choices moving forward. This all sits underneath an approach of intentional planning for work experience. The learning outcomes help to make sure that you're focused on the progression of learners and that workplace experiences are progressive across the 2 weeks and across the growing key stages. They will help young people develop evidence of their interactions with workplaces, the development of their skills, and a record of their experiences. But that takes reflection overall, and it takes care in planning. I'm now going to hand back to Leslie, who will explain the support that's available in the context of the work experience guarantee and how us and the Careers Hubs are available to help you over the coming months and the next academic year.
As I said before, we're not expecting you to do this alone. We're here to support you. We've recently developed a curriculum audit tool, and the tool is a great way of identifying where an institution's planned activity can meet the necessary criteria for meaningful achievement of Gatsby benchmarks 4, 5, 6, and 7, including work experience. We also have a podcast dedicated to work experience, Let's Make It Work, which features a range of practitioner and stakeholder voices and shares practical insights, real examples, and actionable takeaways. And all of our EqualX resources can be found on the CEC resource directory. So if you remember nothing else today, please remember these 3 key actions. First of all, speak to your careers hubs. They are there to support you. They understand the local context in which you are working in, and they are there to support you in your journey to achieving the 10 days of work experience. Number 2, map where work already exists. Where are there existing opportunities for pupils to connect learning with the world of work? And thirdly, start with the young people who are currently missing out. And this last point matters enormously. Reform isn't about making good provision slightly better. It's about ensuring that those least likely to benefit first. So moving to next steps. So any unanswered question arising from today's webinar will be collated and we'll share those responses in due course. Our FAQs on modern work experience will be updated and published on the CEC website, and there's lots more support to come. We're developing planning tools, examples, case studies. There will be more podcasts, more templates. We will continue building these resources throughout the next academic year. You don't need everything in place today or tomorrow, but now is the time to begin your planning, and we're here to support you through that journey. I'm going to hand back to Nicola now for some final points.
So as we think about the statutory guidance and how it's applied, it's really important to really think about Leslie's last point. Don't wait for perfection before starting. It's expected that the delivery of the work experience guarantee is progressive, as I described before, and it will evolve in just the same way that your careers programs have evolved towards the Gatsby benchmarks. But let's remember the voice of young people, the evidence and the policy steers. This work is much needed. This policy change is much needed. There is a collective moral imperative that we move the dial for young people in terms of preparing them for their next steps beyond school, beyond college, and into the workplace. When you're thinking about the statutory guidance, there are key terms that you should think about. The term must is used when the person in question is legally required to do something. The term should is used when the advice should be followed unless there is good reason not to. It's important that you use your professional judgment as trained careers leaders and as education leaders, and that you apply your specialist expertise to the guidance, not just the letter of it. Cohorts, circumstances, and communities differ, and your professional judgment is what turns national expectations into locally meaningful action. We're keen to share some inspiration, and much of this will come in the next few months. But as we wrap up for this afternoon, we'd like to finish with one thought. Over the last decade, we've transformed careers education in England. You all have played a significant part in that. We've built careers hubs. We've trained careers leaders. We've embedded the Gatsby benchmarks. We've created a national infrastructure that many countries now come to learn from. Today's guidance isn't about asking us to start again. It's about asking us to build on those foundations further, to connect careers even more closely to curriculum, to connect curriculum more closely than it has ever been connected to employers, and ultimately to connect every young person more closely to their future. Because careers education isn't about helping someone choose a job. It's about giving every young person the confidence, the opportunity, and the experiences that they need to build their life ahead of them. On this slide, there is a link which takes you to a young person who explains how modern work experience has changed her future as a young person with SEND. I urge you to read the script from Catherine, the young person particularly speaking in this link. Her journey is inspirational and serves as a reminder to us all the importance of this work. I know at the moment that all of you on the call are looking for inspiration. You're looking for ideas, and it's really important that we don't all start from a blank page and think about reinventing the wheel if we don't need to. If you use LinkedIn, the hashtags at the bottom of this screen in particular will take you to a whole range of different activities that have been facilitated by careers hubs, delivered by schools, and planned and co-designed with employers together. And those examples range from whole year group cohort activities through to individual activities and some really creative, innovative practice being led by employers every step of the way. I'm going to bring this webinar to a close right now, but as we do so, I would just like to thank you all for everything you continue to do from the perspective of careers guidance for young people across the country. I know that the last week in particular with the heat will have been incredibly challenging for all of you within your institutions, but the work that you do genuinely has the opportunity to change the lives and the futures of the young people that we work for. If you have any questions at all, do make sure that they've gone into the question and answer sessions this afternoon. As we mentioned earlier, we'll collate those and we'll get those back out to you as quickly as possible, ideally before the end of this week. So watch out for the emails heading into your inboxes. And then continue to ask further questions of your Careers Hub. And we look forward to seeing more of you at events, activities, and work experiences across the course of the next academic year. In the meantime, have a wonderful summer and thanks for all of your efforts. Good afternoon.